everybody, I am Liz, and today I am here to tell you that I am a big fat liar. I lied to you 2 years ago when I said in a Top 5 Wednesday video on books I would never read, I specified that I would never read a Colleen Hoover book because I didn't think Colleen Hoover's romance novels would ever interest me in the slightest, especially when I heard that they are full of jealous man romance tropes. And so I decided to never read a Colleen Hoover book until this past week. I read Verity by Colleen Hoover, and here are my thoughts on Verity. I am going to give a non-spoilery review for Verity and my thoughts, feelings, tidbits, and if it has swayed me to read any other Colleen Hoover books. So I was brought to my attention on Verity from several booktubers because Colleen Hoover is a very popular romance author, and I specifically heard Sasha from A Book Utopia rave about it in books that really just jacked her up. She was not expecting things in it. It got her all shook. And so I read about the book, I read the synopsis, and it sounded really interesting. This book takes place with the main character, Lowen Ashley. She is a lesser known author. She's written several books, but she's not that fame status that people like Colleen Hoover have. And she gets propositioned to ghostwrite the rest of the series written by Verity Crawford. Verity Crawford has had many accidents in the past. 2 of her daughters have died tragically, and now she has had a car accident and she hasn't quite recovered to the point where she can finish the series, and she is well beyond back deadlines, and her husband and her publishers have come to Lowen to finish the series off for Verity. As obviously Lowen agrees to write this story, she's whisked away to the Crawford house to gather all of Verity's notes, thoughts, feelings on the series so that she can make outlines and etc. for the story to complete the series. In going through Verity's things, she finds this autobiography manuscript that alludes to Verity being a very terrible person, very much different from her husband's perspective of Verity, and it makes things really challenging because Lowen starts to have feelings for Jeremy Crawford, Verity's husband. So obviously the plot grabbed me, had me hooked, very intrigued by this story, and for the most part that remained the same throughout the story. Specifically the suspense plot, the plot that talks about Lowen reading the autobiography, discovering things about Verity. That loved it, was super interesting. I was super invested by the beginning because of the events that happened in chapter 1. I thought it was so well done, it had me hooked. And then the ending, pretty solid. However, the romance plot between Lowen and Jeremy did not buy it. There was not enough leading up to the relationship. It was very creepy and weird in my opinion. I didn't think it fit really well. There wasn't enough like little snippets to like make me see the connection, except for the fact that Jeremy was attractive and married. Now, as for romance plots and how I feel about romance, they need to do one of two things. They either need to melt my heart, make me feel all warm and fuzzy and rooting for the relationship, or in regards to like more smutty romance books, they need to make me feel for the more sexual side of the relationship. They need to get me a little hot and bothered or some, as you would say. And this book did neither. I did not feel for their relationship, and the romance scenes were dry. They weren't descriptive to the sense where they would make me feel a little hot and bothered or anything. They were very generic and tropey, and that's in both situations, whether it was Lowen reading Verity's autobiography with those sexy scenes, or whether it was sexy scenes between Lowen and Jeremy. It was very dry, just did not care for it. It was, like I said, very tropey, where it would talk about not expecting his manly things, and it was just, I was over it. If Colleen Hoover would have left out the romance plot and stuck with just the suspense, I would have loved it. Now for the setting. We have several settings. We have the setting in Manhattan that takes place at the publisher house, at Lowen's apartment, but the majority of the setting takes place in the Crawford Manor. And I absolutely loved the settings. I thought they were very fitting with the story. It was very descriptive. It had the ambiance that Colleen Hoover was looking for and wanting the readers to fill. And so that was done well. Now we have the characters. Obviously, the characters in the story really center around Lowen, Jeremy, and Verity, but obviously there's Verity's children. There is Chasten, Harper, the twins, the girls that died, and then there's a little boy named Crew. There's also Lowen's publisher, Verity's publisher, the legal team in that regard, and that's essentially the characters you really dive into. But there's also a few that you hear talked about. You get a little bit of description, a little thoughts and feelings into their life. I feel like the character development wasn't quite there, but the character descriptions and diving into their background was great. And obviously this autobiography is quite intense, quite messed up. So it has an obvious trigger for child abuse. It's very graphic, so be wary. Hello everybody, Future Liz here. I failed to mention while talking about Verity, specifically in the form of Verity Crawford's wrongdoings, I failed to mention that it hinted on the side of disbelief and unbelievability. The first act, I was horrified and just really grossed out about the events. But as the events continued to happen, it became unbelievable in the sense where there wasn't a lot of detail, background information, or depth into a lot of Verity's actions. It really seemed like Colleen Hoover did pick the terror of the week or spun a wheel to say, oh, I'm going to have Verity commit this act in this part of the story. So it kind of had this air of just unbelievability, which also really severely impacted not just the plot development, but also the character development and the overall progression of the story. So there we have it. We have my overall thoughts and feelings of the story was, it was okay. Where Colleen Hoover did well was the beginning, the conclusion, and stringing along this great thriller suspense ride. What Colleen Hoover didn't do well was the romance, connecting Lowen and Jeremy to a believable romance arc. They also lacked a lot of descriptive dialogue. I felt that, especially when it comes to Lowen's reactions to reading Verity's autobiography, that there could have been a lot more showing versus telling in that situation, and it really irritated me. Some word choices also really irritated me. So, all in all, don't know if I will pick up any of Colleen Hoover's books, because if her romance arcs follow the romance arc of this book or anything like that, where I don't feel those connections to the characters that are supposed to be in a romantic relationship, it's not for me. So I think I should have stuck with it from my previous thoughts 2 years ago to not read Colleen Hoover. Moving on, I will end this on a positive note by talking about my favorite quote in Verity. And this is the first part of Verity's autobiography that Lowen reads, and it says, "A writer should never have the audacity to write about themselves unless they are willing to separate every layer of protection between the author's soul and their book. The words should come directly from the center of the gut, tearing through flesh and bone as they break free. Ugly and honest and bloody and a little bit terrifying, but completely exposed." And I feel like that should be the same for really any author's works. An author should really feel their writing and feel exposed when they write, because then they're writing very authentically and they can really appreciate their story, and their readers will appreciate their story as well. Now, this story definitely has a suspense theme, a theme where a character hides their true selves from everybody and it gets exposed, and there's a romance arc of a woman and a married man. If you guys have any types of recommendations for those themes, let me know down below and I will be sure to check those books out, especially if they were written better than this one. Please let me know if you've read Verity and what your thoughts and feelings on Verity are. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Did you think it was just okay? Please let me know. I hope you enjoyed this review, and I hope I didn't completely shut you off from my channel. And if you are interested, if you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up if you're interested in watching more of my content and being notified to when I post videos, which is every Tuesday and Friday. Please subscribe to my channel so you can know more about what I show here on this lovely YouTube space called BookTube. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Know that I love you guys so much, and until next time, bye!